put it up on social media, and it absolutely was proof of what we've been talking about for days. The last 3 days, I've done videos where the Indiana Fever seem to be on this nonstop barrage on social media to try to get you to buy tickets. And it's like, wait a minute. The one team that didn't need to beg for ticket sales is begging for ticket sales? And there's a lot that's went into this. I said, you've got a segment of fans that are still pissed off about last year.
Indiana Fever training camp opened under a cloud of fan frustration, with ticket sales for the home opener emerging as an unexpected talking point on what should have been a straightforward day of basketball news. The situation gained attention after social media posts surfaced showing wide availability of seats for the May 9th opener against Paige Buchers and her team, including sections that would typically be among the first to go. The contrast with last season was stark. The previous year's home opener reportedly sold out in under an hour. That kind of gap is difficult to ignore.
Off about last year and how the Indiana Fever decided to handle Caitlin Clark's injury. That's a factor. Then you put in the fact that the team takes a basketball player that literally run her mouth about the fandom 2 weeks before she was drafted to said team. It's like, wait a minute. All that drama Angel Reese.
What makes the optics worse for the organization is the volume of promotional activity on their own channels. The team's social media presence in recent days has been heavily skewed toward ticket sales, messaging links, calls to action, player-related content tied to purchase prompts. For a franchise that has spent the last 2 years turning away demand it could barely keep up with, that shift in tone has not gone unnoticed. Several factors appear to be contributing to the cooling enthusiasm. A segment of the fanbase has not moved past the handling of Caitlin Clark's injury last season, and the lack of transparency around that situation left a lasting impression.
All that drama Angel Reese caused by calling the Indiana Fever fans racist, and you brought Angel Reese light to the team. You brought the Temu version of Angel Reese to the Fever. You knowingly drafted her after she crushed the fans as racist. You put her on the squad. All the while, Ari McDonald and Odyssey Sims was setting out there. Odyssey's not now. She's with the Wings.
The decision to draft Raven Johnson has also generated friction. Johnson had publicly clashed with the Indiana fan base in the period leading up to the draft, and bringing her into the organization struck many supporters as a direct dismissal of their concerns. The fact that other available players with cleaner relationships to the fan base went unsigned made the decision feel more deliberate. Beyond the roster choices, anxiety around how Clark will actually be used on the floor has added another layer of tension. Concerns that she may again be deployed in an off-ball capacity, spending long stretches waiting for touches rather than operating as the primary initiator have resurfaced. And Stephanie White's handling of Clark's role remains a source of skepticism among a vocal portion of the fan base.
Odyssey's not now. She's with the Wings. But you had viable options. This is the route you decided to go. And then we find out, okay, you're going to load manage Caitlin Clark. Not only that, but we're seeing signs of you playing Caitlin Clark not at point, but everywhere but point, it seems like. We're going to play her off ball.
Load management has added yet another pressure point. The announcement that Clark's practice reps would be monitored, however sensible from a medical standpoint, fed into a broader sense of unease about how the organization prioritizes her value to the product on the court. A front office response to fan criticism on social media also drew backlash, with many observers pointing out that public-facing leadership in professional sports invites scrutiny as a baseline condition of the job, and that framing fan pushback as a problem rather than feedback tends to make the situation worse. The general expectation is that the remaining seats for the opener will eventually be claimed as the game approaches. But the fact that the conversation around opening day has centered on unsold tickets rather than on-court optimism reflects a trust gap between the organization and a meaningful portion of its supporters.
Where but point, it seems like. We're going to play her off ball. Great. Another year of standing and or sitting in my house watching Caitlin Clark stand in the corner waiting to get the ball back, because if she ever gets the ball and passes it, you can forget it. It'll never come back around to her. And frankly, we feel like Stephanie White doesn't. We feel like she doesn't want it to come back around to Caitlin. Indiana Fever's got a problem, and it's now affecting their business. Wake up, training camp.
The Fever and the ownership structure above them are being watched closely to see whether the concern registers before it becomes something harder to reverse. The Indiana Fever's training camp roster is now fully set, and there are some legitimate concerns worth raising about how the whole thing has been put together. The most glaring issue is that this is the smallest training camp group in the league, and unlike last year, there are essentially 0 open spots to compete for. 12 months ago, there were 4 players genuinely scrapping for a single remaining slot. KK, Brienne January, Jillian Aline, and Yvonne Ajim were all in real contention.
Indiana Fever's got a problem, and it's now affecting their business. Wake up, training camp starts today. And it's like, okay. Awesome? Question mark? Yesterday, I did a video about this post right here. Yet another. Let's pack the house on May 9th. Wait a minute. Didn't the games sell out in hours last year? Well, my boy Venom posted this.
This cycle, every main roster spot was locked in before camp even opened. The developmental slots are similarly settled, going exclusively to Temi Fagbenley and Jessica Timmons. To have moved anyone like KK, Megan McConnell, or Kiana Trahan into a developmental role, the team would have needed to cut them outright first, so those options close themselves off. The Timmons developmental slot, in particular, raises questions.
Venom posted this. The Fever are struggling to sell out a home opener for the first time, even in the nosebleeds. What could be the reason for the decline? Man, I mean, who would have thought there would be tickets available there? What is going on? What is happening here? By the way, that's a game.
A 5'8" scoring guard at that position offers almost nothing in terms of roster flexibility. The picks that weren't made passing on Kayla Alexander, not stashing a third-round selection, not grabbing a player with genuine size through Yard Hoops or Han Shu all add up to the same recurring problem. There is no meaningful height depth on this team, and that was a choice. What this setup has functionally produced is 4 players, Timmons, McConnell, Trahan, and Justine Betancourt, who are essentially auditioning for other organizations right now, not competing for anything in Indiana.
By the way, that's a game against Paige Beckers. If there was ever another reason to say she's got absolutely no motion in this league. Venom says the thing out loud. Last year's home opener allegedly sold out in under an hour. That kind of discrepancy is loud. How about a little more from our boy right here? Let's just check it out. He does a scan across the arena.
Whether any of them end up signing elsewhere remains to be seen, but that's the reality of their situation heading into camp. On the more positive side of the ledger, the core of Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aaliyah Boston is obviously the foundation everything else gets built around. The lingering question with that trio is whether a system can finally be found that gets all 3 performing at a high level in the same game. Going back through the 13 contests those 3 shared the floor last year, there was never a single outing where all of them genuinely excelled together.
And the fact is that the developmental slots are already sorted as well. It is Justine Passat and Jessica Timmons. They're guaranteed developmental slots because in order to, we're now at the stage where they would have had to have cut, to make KK a developmental slot, they have to cut her. They would have to cut Megan McConnell. They would have to cut, what's her name?
Some nights Kelsey and Aaliyah carried things. Other nights it was Caitlin and Aaliyah. There were games where Clark and Mitchell were locked in while Boston barely factored. That pattern predates Stephanie White's tenure to some degree, but it's still unresolved.
But, what's her name? Who else? Kiana Traylor. They would have to cut both of them in order to get them onto developmental contracts. So basically, it is Justine Bissot and it is Jessica Timmins, which is really annoying because I'm like, look, Jessica Timmins is a scoring 5'8" guard. There is no world in which Jessica Timmins is going to ever do anything for the Fever. Why did you not just take Yarden Garzone or Hannah Stolke? Why did you not just take Yarden?
Mitchell's slow starts are well documented. At this point, she has a consistent history of needing the first stretch of the season to find her rhythm, going back through 2023 and into the injury recovery period of 2024. Clark dealt with physical issues through much of last year. So heading into the first 10 games, Aliyah Boston may well be the most reliable performer on the roster, simply by virtue of being the freshest and most consistent. The guard-heavy depth chart is another structural concern.
Why did you not just take Yarden Garzone or Hannah Stolke in that third round? Why did you not just stash a pick? Why did you not just find whoever the tall... Why did you not take Kyla Oldacre? Why is there no size? Why? That being said, don't love the way it's structured, because it is pretty much impossible for them to bring Megan McConnell or Kiana Trader. Like, if Megan McConnell is unbelievable.
Ty Harris, Shea Petty, and Walker Kimbrough are all fine players individually. The problem is having all three occupying the same positional space simultaneously. One undersized backup guard is a utility piece. Three of them is a logjam that creates real problems with spacing and defensive versatility.
Megan McConnell is unbelievable. She's just going to be signed by another team. And the problem is that there are 4 players right now, with the way the Indiana Fever have done it, they've already promised her 12 roster spots. There are 4 players trying out for other teams. They are not trying out for the Fever. Kiana Traylor, Megan McConnell, Jessica Timmins, and Justine Bissot are trying out for other teams right now. And yeah, it is a very...
The end of bench slots that went to Sydney Colson and Brianne Turner last year, one guard, one big, both capable of sliding into games without disrupting things, have both potentially become guard spots this year. And with Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham not having a natural fallback to the 2, Hull in particular may find herself logging minutes at the 4, which is a stretch. Myisha Hines-Allen stands out as a quietly significant addition. The dynamic at play with her signing mirrors what happened with Natasha Howard the previous year, a highly regarded player whose stock had dipped coming off a rough stretch, choosing Indiana partly because the environment offers a genuine path to rebuilding value.
It is a very, very interesting one. Is that how... Okay, there's 2 T's in Justine Bissot. Okay, I have been misspelling the name. I was like, I've been spelling it wrong, or did they spell it wrong? No, I have been spelling it wrong. I do want to apologize to Justine Bissot. I have been misspelling your name. But that being said, when it comes to the Indiana Fever roster, there is a lot that I do like. First of all, you're bringing back Caitlin Clark-Kelsey.
Howard arrived with her reputation damaged after her Dallas stint and ended up with a substantial contract. Hines-Allen, who commanded a max deal the year prior, likely accepted less money with the calculation that even a solid season in a high-visibility setting puts her back in the conversation for a strong deal at 30 years old with years of productive basketball still ahead. Worst case, Indiana's track record suggests careers don't end there. The Katie Lou Samuelson situation is an instructive reference point. Raven Johnson is a developmental asset at minimum, regardless of how her on-court role unfolds.
First of all, you're bringing back Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, and Aliyah Boston. And the hope is that Stephanie White runs a system that works for all 3 of them. Like, look, I don't have much hope in that, but there's a difference. Like, Steph White absolutely deserves. She earned the full season. The fact is, in the 13 games that Caitlin, Kelsey, and Aliyah played last year, I don't think in any of the 13 we saw all 3 play well. We saw games where Kelsey and Aliyah were unbelievable.
The others filling out the back of the roster, McConnell, Trahan, Petty, are harder to justify in terms of what they're actually there to accomplish. As a complete group, this roster projects as a 3rd or 4th best team in the league. It has more genuine championship upside than Atlanta, who will likely outperform Indiana in regular season win totals but are harder to see going deep in a playoff series. New York remains a tier above in a direct comparison.
We saw games where Kelsey and Aaliyah were unbelievable. We saw games where Caitlin and Aaliyah were unbelievable. We saw games where Caitlin and Kelsey were great and Aaliyah did nothing. This isn't like post Olympics 2024 system. The problem is that so far in Steph White's system, and it is a big flaw from last year. But again, look, there's an entire year to work on this. There is an entire year. So I'm not going to be saying out right now that it's not the greatest thing, because you have three of these players, but we haven't seen since Christy Sides was the coach.
Las Vegas presents a matchup where Indiana could actually come out ahead given how their personnel lines up. Minnesota is the matchup that warrants the most concern. Dorka Juhas just won EuroLeague MVP. There was no real panic about Alana Smith's departure because Dorka was going to be starting regardless, and Bridget Carlton's exit is replaceable. The Lynx are significantly better than most current projections suggest. Chicago also represents a difficult stylistic problem given Indiana's ongoing struggles against size.
Because you have three of these players, but we haven't seen since Christy Sides was the coach all three of them play well in the same game. And I get it, small sample size. Caitlin Clark was clearly injured last year. Kelsey Mitchell does not start off seasons well. Like, there's a joke like May Kelsey Mitchell. Like she doesn't start seasons well. She didn't start Unrivaled well. She was horrendous in the 2024 start season coming off the injury. From what I had heard, look, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't watching the Fever in 2023. She was the same. She kind of plays her way into the season.
The realistic ceiling is a deep playoff run if the bracket sets up favorably. The realistic floor involves losing a first or second round series to a team with a favorable matchup. This has been Indiana's defining characteristic for 2 consecutive years. Their results are almost entirely dependent on who they're playing, not just how well they're playing. The coaching picture adds one more layer of uncertainty.